What's up, guys? Saf here on SuperSaf Speaks, and welcome to episode number 56 of the podcast with myself, your host, SuperSaf, and my co-host.
Thunder Yi from Border Work.
And it's February, and that means it's the month of Unpack, so we are going to be doing a final leaks and rumors roundup of the Samsung Galaxy S26 series. But ahead of that, way ahead of schedule, we have some leaks for the iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max, courtesy of Front Page Tech, and these are very detailed and have some very exciting news, which we'll go over. And then potentially some bad news. We've been hearing some rumors that OnePlus may be shutting down its global operations, which, I hope it doesn't happen, but who knows? We'll talk about that as well. Let's initially start with the Samsung Galaxy S26 series. So dates have been confirmed, pretty much. We have a report from Ice Universe which says that 25th of Feb is going to be the date of Unpacked. Pre-order period will be following on from that, with the market launch date being the March 11th, right? So just around the corner. And we've been covering lots of leaks over the past few months. We're going to round a lot of those up. But before we do, we really need to talk about the privacy display feature, because on the Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra, we did talk about this, where this privacy display feature was leaked a few weeks ago. It was in One UI, and it showed how you can limit the view of the display based on the angle. So, like we've seen on previous screen protectors, if somebody's trying to peek over, you wouldn't be able to see it. But this latest news, and this comes directly from Samsung themselves, they've teased it. It looks like this feature is going to be way more advanced than what we thought, and something we've not seen before, because this angle limitation will be at potentially the pixel level, right? So think of it this way. You have some personal information popping up. Maybe you've got a password field, maybe you've got notifications. You don't necessarily get attention to your screen by having it completely blank. So if somebody's looking at it over your shoulder, they're like, why is the full screen blank? Maybe he's got something to hide. With this, it will essentially be intelligently able to hide just certain parts of your screen, which is mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. I've not seen a feature like that. Have you?
No, I haven't. I think this is it's very interesting because remember when last time we spoke about this, we went, cool, privacy protector, it will cut out some people's, some of that business out of there. But then seeing the clips from Samsung, they kind of just tease this ahead, which is smart, right? You want to build the hype for it, and you want people to kind of understand what it does, because it's not just a very simple, privacy mode. The fact that you could cover the password section of your phone, whether we put in password in, or even the notification bar in case somebody's sending you messages that you should not be receiving. But all jokes aside, it's very customizable and it's great in the business setting. Now, what I want to know is, does this tie into Samsung's security Knox feature as well, right? Because they've really talked about that in the past. It doesn't have to, but it'll be interesting to see how that helps on the business level or business side of things. And also, when they dropped the teaser, it ended with smartphone and it turned into AI phone. And at first I was like, "Oh, okay, silly little play." But I do like the way Samsung has been using AI on its devices, right? Especially with all the different things, even from simple things from just removing people in the background, it works really well. So I like the fact that it looks like Samsung is picking the right places to actually use it where it feels like just a feature on the phone, as opposed to it being like, oh, yes, it's AI. Yeah, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but at least it's practical.
So yes, Knox is going to be embedded, because that's part of what Samsung have said. They've said it's a new standard for mobile privacy, and they've mentioned there is no privacy without strong security, and they've mentioned Samsung Knox. Now, when you mention AI, I've said this before, but to me, Samsung has the most complete AI package on any smartphone. And that's because you do have Gemini, right? But then you've got all of the Samsung specific Galaxy AI features like removing people from the background, removing your hand from your face, and things like that, right? Very advanced features, and they're doing really good on that. I think the AI element here is going to be basically intelligently seeing what might need to be covered, right? What might need to be limited. And if this works like it's suggesting on a pixel level, then it's going to be so much better than just the full thing, because we've seen so many people with a screen protector that limits the angle of view, but then you don't necessarily always want it to limit the angle of view. And plus, as I was saying, it maybe brings more attention to your device. It's like, what is this guy hiding, sort of a thing. If it's kind of done intelligently when there are things that you do want to hide, such as your notifications, your password fields, etc., then those are hidden from people that are sitting next to you and around you, right? So I think this is a super cool feature, and it's going to be a very key selling point. I've already said that Samsung has some of the best displays, like the S24 Ultra and the S25 Ultra with Gorilla Armor. Having the anti-reflective displays has been a game changer for me. I think it's amazing. What's also interesting is that Ice Universe has said that the new generation of ultra high strength Gorilla Glass will eliminate the need for tempered glass protectors. Now,
Mm.
I did a 1 year later review of the S25 Ultra. If you want to see that, that is on the channel. But one of the things I mentioned was that if you use a regular tempered glass screen protector on your S25, then it's gonna remove those anti-reflective properties, because now you've got a layer in front of it. There were a lot of wise asses in the comments, which you obviously always get. They're like, oh, we just use the anti-reflective screen protector from Samsung, which they obviously haven't tried themselves. That is just a film, so it's not like a tempered glass screen protector. It's maybe going to protect your device from scratches, but it's not going to be um, protecting your device from shattering, for example, right? So if this is the case and Samsung also has this new Gorilla Glass, then that's going to make it even more impressive.
Yeah, no, I think so. I guess you could say an upgraded visual experience for people that's is subtle, but you combine that with the privacy mode, you combine that with the fact that their displays have always looked good as well. And Samsung is almost wading into, I would say, Apple territory, but what Apple usually does is they come out with something and they take out the case manufacturers or like the accessory manufacturers in there. And this is basically two sections. One is privacy, which is not as big in the sense, but there's still a good amount of people who buy those, displays. Another one is also protection of the screen as well. So I don't know. Samsung is turning a new leaf and becoming a completely different demon.
Well, another piece of news as well from Ice Universe is that a 10-bit screen has been confirmed for the S26 Ultra. So
Ooh.
yeah. So again, this is looking like it's easily going to be the best display on a smartphone out there. Now, one thing to kind of mention is that these features that we're talking about are likely to be exclusive to the S26 Ultra. So they are not likely. We might have a few of these on the S26 and the S26 Plus, but these features look like flagship features that Samsung is going to save for their flagship device.
I
However,
think the privacy mode might be for all three. If that's run by AI, same processor, right?
same processor, but then the display has to be different, because every time we've seen the displays, right? The
Ah, yeah.
S25, because the S25, S25 Plus didn't have Gorilla Armor. You know what I mean? Gorilla Armor was exclusive to the Ultra series.
True.
So yeah, I think it will be exclusive to the S26 Ultra. It makes sense because maybe later down the line, they will start rolling it out to other devices. But initially, at least, it's going to be like, hey, this is our key flagship feature that you're not going to be getting on your Oppas, your Xiaomis, your iPhones, etc. Right? And I think that's going to be one of the key selling points. But the other displays are still going to be really good. From what we're hearing, they're going to be LTPO M14 OLED displays. The S26 is supposed to be increasing in size to 6.3 inches from 6.2 inches. The S26 Plus is going to stay around about the same, 6.7 inches. So around that side, not as many updates in terms of the displays for the others. However, when it comes to the batteries, now I want to talk about this because the S26 base model is rumored to have a slightly larger battery, so 4,300 milliamps, right? Up from 4,000, so 300 more milliamps. The S26 Plus and the S26 Ultra are rumored to have the same size batteries as last year. So the S26 Plus, 4,900 milliamps. The S26 Ultra, 5,000 milliamps. Now, we did discuss some reports earlier a few weeks ago, a few months ago, that the S26 Ultra was rumored to have up to a 5,400 milliamp hour battery. This has been debunked by Ice Universe and has said that nope, this is not going to happen. They're going to be sticking to 5,000 milliamps, which I am a bit disappointed about.
Oh, I'm very disappointed. You can keep you a bit. I'm very disappointed. I mean, to be fair, I think maybe this is probably Samsung's last year of maintaining a 5,000 milliamp battery, especially when you have the likes of, OnePlus, which we'll talk about, can run 2 days.
Easy.
When you now have smartphones now that are the same weight, maybe slightly thicker, that can run 2 whole days. I'm not talking about barely making it to 9 p.m. I'm talking about barely making it to 10 p.m. the next day. That is, that's where we are. And I think Samsung really has to just literally bite the bullet and go, okay, we need to actually make that step because
Nice.
yes, there's all the worry about okay, charge cycles, but also if you think about it, where the charge cycles on a carbon, I was gonna say carbon fiber, silicon carbon battery is half than a regular lithium battery. But then when it takes 2 days to drain, it's the same amount of charge cycles.
Yep. This is
Yeah.
this is this
So
is true. So yeah, that's one piece of disappointing information. Good news is that charging speeds are increasing. We've talked about this before, but 60 watts of charging on the S26 Ultra. So 0 to 75% in 30 minutes. Again, not at the level of OnePlus, not at the level of others, but not bad and, a much needed increase that we've wanted. What's interesting
60
is,
watts. Why didn't you go with 65? I mean, everybody.
I don't know, you'll have to ask them. So
We'll see.
now,
We'll see.
one of the most recent leaks that we've seen is around Qi 2 wireless charging. So there's been some leaked
Hmm.
images of magnet wireless charger. So it's like a puck. It's almost you could call it very similar to the MagSafe pucks that we get on the Apple side of things. And on it, it says magnet wireless charger Qi 2 25 watts, right? Now, this is officially from Samsung, which means that if that is the case, then we may have Qi 2 built in to the S26 series. Because right now, the S25 series, yes, you can use Qi 2 chargers, but you need a case with magnets. Basically, magnets are not built into the device like they are with the iPhones and the recent Google Pixel 10 devices, right? So is that something we're going to see, or is Samsung still going to kind of say, okay, we've got this charger, but you still need to get a case that has MagSafe magnets?
If they love themselves, they better just go the right way. I mean, they easily could say that and say it goes with the case, but it's to me, it's one of those things that are up in the air. As a person who's kind of left wireless charging, I love the idea of wireless charging, but like honestly, because I'm used to like faster charging nowadays, I couldn't be bothered about wireless charging in any form at all. Just because I can plug it in and it charges really fast, or you have devices that last 2 days. Samsung, remember, change that battery, then no one will care. To me, I think it's one of those things where if Samsung had a longer battery, then I don't think a lot of people would be bothered if it didn't have that too. There'll be complaints. But if they don't and they also do the opposite, then it might be, a toss up.
So let me just say that, plugging in his phone into the charger, he's getting old. As you can see, he's got his dad jumper on, sweater on, right?
Sweater, not
And
a jumper. Excuse me.
so, he's like, I don't want this wireless charging, this rubbish that these kids are talking about. I want to plug
Hey,
my
hey, hey,
phone
hey.
in.
Yeah, hey.
That's what it is, right? So that's the bro.
Look,
I'm gonna disagree
I'm
with you
waiting.
completely there.
I'm waiting for them to beam the energy into my phone. Okay, once you can do that, then okay, fine. I'm fine with
It's
that.
like while you're doing that, just charging me up too, because
Exactly.
my back is hurting. I'm too old. Well, I can't get up, so now I need this wireless air charging to charge me up too. Look, I disagree with him completely. I love wireless charging. I pretty much never use wired charging unless I haven't placed my phone on my charger correctly at night and I wake up and I've got 15% left and I'm like, okay, now I need a quick top up before I go. Then I'll plug it in. But apart from that, wireless charging everywhere. Like I've even got a desk with a wireless charger built in. Shout out to FlexiSpot for the desk, which is awesome and it has it built in. You just drop, while you're just there, you just drop your phone on the table and it's charging up. Brilliant. Yeah, I'm all for wireless charging. The S26 and the S26 Plus unlikely to have the same charging. So 25 watts wired for the S26 is what's rumored, with 45 watts for the S26 Plus. And with the wireless puck, they're still going to be around 15 watts or maybe up to 20 watts for the S26 Plus. They're not going to go all the way up to 25 watts like the S26 Ultra from what we're seeing.
I think it's fine to a certain degree, but I wish that would jump to 45, like at least. I think again, Samsung just needs to make some of those increments, make people happy.
Yeah, let's see. But I mean, design wise, we've talked about this many times before. We've seen lots of leaked renders from OnLeaks, from Ice Universe. We've also seen some most recent leaks from Evan Blast, and these are cases. So these look like actual official renders, right? We've seen lots of potential renders of what these are going to look like. These look like actual renders. Shout out to UAG, the case manufacturer, because that's what the branding is on these cases that Evan Blass has leaked. But yeah, the design is all but confirmed. We're going to have a similar design, except the camera, we're going to have a camera island rather than just the individual rings. And we're no longer going to have those camera discs. It's going to look a bit more premium. It looks like it's going to be pretty much exactly the same as what we've got on the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7. Yeah, apart from that, dimensions, it looks like Ice Universe has leaked that the S26 is going to be slightly larger in terms of the
Mhm.
width and the height. That would make sense because of the larger display, but also it's going to be slightly thinner. The S26 Plus is going to be pretty much exactly the same size, but the S26 Ultra is also going to be slightly bigger in terms of the width and the height, but it is going to be slightly thinner, around 7.9 millimeters. So not huge there, a few minor differences. Performance, we've talked about this. Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 for Galaxy. It looks like that is going to be the chip that's going to be consistent for the S26 Ultra at least. But for the S26 and the S26 Plus, there's going to be a split between the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 for Galaxy and the Exynos 2600 chip. So there is going to be a bit of a split from what we're reading from all of these rumors. Don't worry, I'll order one from here and send it over so you can do a side-by-side test.
Yes, yes, I wouldn't need that because I mean, we've heard some really good things about the Exynos processor this year in terms of like performance, some of the performance leaks, and also I think this is the first 2 nanometer chipset, right? I
Yep,
believe.
world's first
Yeah,
2 nanometer chipset.
yeah. So be interested to see how it performs, and handles because right now Snapdragon is ruling the world.
Well, this is the thing. What's going to be interesting in is, which we were discussing on a previous episode, is that is this going to be the first year where people are going to be like, I want the Exynos chip, not the Snapdragon chip, right? Because every previous year, everybody's been like, I don't want the Exynos chip, I want the Snapdragon chip, right? Is it going to flip this year because of the Exynos 2600? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think we will have to wait and see. Depends on how big that performance jump is. But the other part, though, which I'm quite interested to see, I know Samsung won't do anything specific on this, is we've seen from manufacturers like Oppo, for instance, going with MediaTek because they can do a lot of custom side chips as well, right? So
Mm.
what does Exynos have to do with like camera, right? What kind of improvements will we
Uh,
see from there? Or will Samsung just have to just keep it the same because of course they're using two different chips?
Well, this is the thing because the ISP, image signal processor, does play a part in images, right? And from what we're seeing on the leaks, the S26 and the S26 Plus will have relatively the same hardware as we've had in previous years. So a 50 megapixel primary, 12 megapixel ultra wide. and potentially a 12 megapixel telephoto, which will be up from the 10 megapixel telephoto that we've got. So still 3 times optical zoom, but maybe a new sensor. Again, this isn't confirmed. These are just some rumors that we've seen. Potentially, the S26 Ultra will have some interesting updates. So although it's going to have apparently 200 megapixel primary, 10 megapixel 3 times telephoto, 50 megapixel 5 times telephoto, as well as a 50 megapixel ultra wide, the aperture for the primary camera, according to IC Universe, will be going from f1.7 to f1.4, which will allow
Mm,
in more light. And IC Universe has also said that the S26 Ultra will come with a new lens to combat flare. Now, if this is the case, then in my camera comparison, when I'm putting it up against the iPhone, it's going to be interesting because obviously the iPhone is known to have those lens flare bubbles, especially when, you're trying to record out in the street at night. So has Samsung kind of looked at that and been like, okay, let's do something where we can eliminate this?
mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to hear some of those changes. Well, I also wanna see how it compares to all the other Chinese manufacturers, especially the Oppo with the not Oppo, sorry, Vivo with their, 300 series, which has been pretty nice, but overall, if Samsung can bring the heat like they usually do, which is always funny though, because they've stayed with sort of like the same similar sensor, but when you take pictures, like you take the photos, you look at them side by side, you're like, I mean, you guys brought in new things, but it still doesn't necessarily. I mean, it's better in certain areas, but not
Yeah.
like it
So
trounces it or anyway.
So what I will say is what I said in my review of the S25 Ultra after 1 year is that although the S25 Ultra wasn't the best at everything in 2025, it did everything well, right? And this is where I think Samsung's adopting Apple's kind of setup where, yeah, the iPhone doesn't have the best camera for a lot of things, right? But it does everything very, very well, right? So
Mhm.
that's kind of what I think Samsung goes for, and I think that's what appeals to the masses as well. Because although Vivo and others might do really well for zoom, they might do really well for like low light. When it comes to other things like video, maybe they're not as good. Maybe they're not as good for the selfie camera, for example. And speaking of the selfie camera, apparently we are getting a new selfie camera on the S26 Ultra, which is going to have a slightly wider field of view as well.
Oh, so no one's copying Apple yet, huh?
Well, I wonder if it's a wider field of view, will it have a similar functionality, or has Apple got like a patent on that or something? Which, if they want to use that, then they have to pay royalties because that is the first one I've seen that can do that.
Yeah, but I don't think so. I mean, it's just an open gate lens. I'm sorry, I said lens, but it's just an open
Square
gate
lens.
camera. Yeah, so
No, but I wonder
should
if
be
that
able to do it.
functionality, can you like, because obviously it's the first to do it, right? That you can take both landscape and portrait images without rotating your smartphone. I've not seen that before. So is that something that they've maybe got a patent on that, yeah, others can use it, but they have to pay royalties to Apple and they don't want to do that? Who knows? Because nobody's copied it yet, which is surprising. Not that I
Yeah,
know of
I know.
anyway.
No, no. I mean, we'll wait till MWC and see what the Chinese manufacturers have by then.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Software wise, obviously Android 16, One UI 8, 7 generations of OS updates and security updates, which we know. AI features. Now, Ice Universe has said that Samsung will be reserving its newest and most advanced AI features for the S26 Ultra, right? Now, what will those potential features be? Is that referring to the AI features of the privacy display feature, which we've talked about? I'm not sure. But again, it looks like Samsung may be trying to make the S26 Ultra stand out a bit more compared to some of the others. So then, like it's, hey, spend the extra money, go for the S26 Ultra. Obviously, that's the one with the S Pen as well. S Pen is remaining. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to have Bluetooth as far as we're seeing. There are literally no reports of Bluetooth coming back. So I don't think that's going to come back. But the S26 Ultra does seem to be the one that's going to be getting the most attention as per usual.
Yeah, rightfully so, I guess. I thought maybe this year Samsung might also do similar things to Apple, where Apple, with the iPhone 17, really made that a go-to device, and was hoping maybe Samsung would do something to the S26, but they were like, nah, forget it.
Well, I mean, look, so the things that they have, right? So in their defense, from what we're seeing, again, these are based on leaks and rumors, right? We're going to get
True.
a slightly larger battery on the S26. We're going to be getting a slightly larger display. on the S26. Obviously, it's going to have the same flagship chip. It's also going to have double the storage. So it's going to start with 256 this year, as far as we're seeing. All rumors are saying that. And it also makes sense because Apple did
Wait,
that.
has it
So
always been
Samsung going to do that.
128?
Base model for the S26 has always been 128,
Oh
right?
God.
So
Oh,
S26 Plus and S26 Ultra have started at 256, but the S25 basically has always, the base model has always started at 128. And it also means it has slightly slower storage as well. So I think you can only go to UFS 4 point whatever if you have for 256 and above. So, I mean, at the end of the day, maybe it still will be that competitor, because let's be real. When you look at the iPhone 17, the S25 is that one that really competes with it, and you can get it for a lower price as well by the time the iPhone is released.
true. And it's a triple camera setup.
Yeah. So let's see. And price, we've talked about this before, but a South Korean publication has reported that Samsung has decided to launch the Galaxy S26 series at the same price as the Galaxy S25. Now, this is a South Korean publication, so that might be that the prices are going to remain the same just in South Korea. Maybe they're going to be changing in other places, like certain places where politically things are up and down, and, I'm not mentioning where
I have no idea
where
what
you're
you're talking
sitting.
about. I
But
got no idea what you're talking about.
But anyway, guys, it's looking very exciting. And obviously, February 25th is the date to put into your diaries, and watch out for full coverage. I'm obviously going to be doing lots of camera comparisons, and I'm going to be doing a lot of gaming and performance tests as well as other things. So stay tuned for those, guys.
Sweet.
Now we're going to fast forward to September 2026, because we have a huge, huge leak for the iPhone 18 Pro. This comes once again from Front Page Tech. So Front Page Tech had a huge leak for the iPhone Fold. Now they've got
Mhm.
a huge leak for the iPhone 18 Pro. And apparently we're going to get the iPhone 18 Pro and the September. Those are going to be the only 3 new devices. We may be getting an iPhone 17e soon, but that's obviously not going to be in September. And let's break down some of the leaks that we've got here. Design looks quite similar, although we're likely to have 3 new colorways: burgundy, brown, and purple, which look pretty interesting. It looks like Apple may be testing these colors, and we might just get 1 or 2 of these colors. The design was new on the iPhone 17 Pro, so I wasn't expecting them to change it, but it looks like we might be getting color matched sections for the back. So, for the
Finally,
silver
yeah.
version, that's something that I will be looking forward to.
Yes.
But one of the bigger changes comes on the front, and that is with the dynamic island, right? So dynamic island, we've had it for many years now. It's in the middle. It has your camera as well as the Face ID sensors, but Apple has kind of interestingly made that into a dynamic area where you get all of your notifications and things like that. Looks like the dynamic island will be moving to the left corner of the screen, right? And it's going to be just a small punch out for the camera, and the Face ID sensors are now going to be under the display, okay? Now, that actually makes sense, because if we look at, say, for example, the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 4, 5, and 6, they had the under-display camera, which wasn't great because, you can still see it and stuff. But Face ID sensors, you could hide behind a display, right? Because
Yeah.
there's nothing that it's actually capturing apart from the sensors that are capturing your facial detail, but it's not like capturing a photo. So having that punch out there with the Face ID sensors covered, pretty good. However, having said that, it's going to look very much like lots of Android smartphones, right?
Yeah. I mean, interesting though. I think Apple will harp on the fact that they've reduced footprints. They'll tell us about how that technology is hidden beneath, which is cool. And they will skip the fact that it looks like every Android phone. But people will remind them. People will remind them that it does.
I'm sure they will, because I think one of the things that makes iPhones unique is because of that dynamic island in the middle. There are not many devices, right? Like we've got things like the Honor Magic 8 Pro, which has the pill shape cutout because it also has something similar to Face ID. But
Mhm.
generally, most Android smartphones will have just a punch out, whether that's in the middle or in the left or the right hand side. Okay. Now that Apple does this from the front anyway, the iPhones are going to look very similar to lots of Android devices. That's one of my first opinions on that. But as far as we're seeing here from Front Page Tech, is that the dynamic island is still going to function similarly. So right now we have all the animations coming from the middle, but these are now going to move towards the left hand side and then still expand out and everything, because dynamic island has kind of become a staple of, at least from a feature perspective, right? That you see notifications come up and expand and, you know, contract and stuff like that. So the functionality is still going to remain the same. It's just going to move towards the left from what we can see here.
Yeah, it would be interesting. It might freak some people out though. Would it be split? Will people go like, okay, this is pretty cool because it slides this way? Or is this something that's like, why did you change it? I'm sure you can keep it in the center if you wanted to, because it's a software thing. So if Apple
Mm.
gives people the opportunity to, set put it wherever they want to, it would be nice,
It,
but
it
I
needs to
doubt
come
they
out
would do
from
that.
that. It needs to kind of expand out from that punch out though. That's the thing, right? So
Yes.
otherwise the
Yeah.
animations would kind of be like, you'd have a punch out and then you'd also have another dynamic island in the middle, which kind of wouldn't make sense. So yeah, I think it's going to stay to the left from what we can see. I mean, the renders on Front Page Tech's video, amazing. Like full credit to, his animator and, his team, because they've come,
Mhm.
these leaks are very good and they're very, very detailed. They almost look like, some of the renders look like they could be on Apple's presentation. You know what I mean? Look very, very good. So I think the colors are going to be very popular, especially the burgundy. Like, mark my words, people are going to be buying that burgundy like hotcakes. I think
So
it's quite
so
an
what
elegant color.
what color are you going for?
I'm going to go for the flagship color. I'm not going for the silver. Well, if the silver, see, you know what's the thing is, a lot of times when I get a device, I go for the one that is going to be A, the flagship color, B, the most popular color, and C, the color that stands out most, right? So right now, if I'm in a thumbnail and I'm holding the orange iPhone, the cosmic orange iPhone, guess what? Even if you look at that thumbnail from a mile away, you'll know that's an iPhone because it's got that distinct orange color, the shape, etc. So I think a lot of the times, for me, the choice is not what I want, it's more about what's gonna work for my audience.
Basically, Saf is saying that he would do anything for you.
Yeah, that's how dedicated I am. I will do anything for you. Well, let's talk about the cameras of the iPhone 18 Pro, because apparently we're getting a big update, and that's in the way of variable aperture. Now, I'm already seeing this in the comments. We've seen this before. We've seen this on the Samsung Galaxy S9. We've seen it on the S10. We've seen it on the Honor Magic 6 as well as the Honor Magic 7 Pro. This is something we've seen before, where the aperture, like you see on many pro cameras, can change, which means it can let in more light or less light. It can have more things in focus or give you more of a shallow depth of field. Now, usually on this scale, the difference is not significant, but it is there. And apparently this was also tested on the iPhone 17 Pro, but it did not make it to final production. So it may or may not come on the iPhone 18 Pro. But Front Page Tech has also said that this may be reserved for the iPhone 18 Pro Max. And I think that would make sense, because a lot of the features that we've seen on the Pro series of iPhones first come to the Max one. So for instance, we had the sensor shift stabilization. Firstly, it was on the Max, then it came onto the Pro the year after. Then we had the 5x telephoto zoom, which again came to the Max version first, and then it came to the Pro. So I think if that is the case, it would actually make sense and go in line with what Apple does, where they will potentially have this feature exclusive to the Max version, then bring it to the Pro the year after.
I mean, that's usually the trend, but correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Apple kind of hint that, at least this last year in September, that they trying to make both the Pro and Max the same so that it feels like you're just getting a size difference, or they just kind of matched it this year? Like, I'm not sure if I mistook what Tim and gang were saying, but I felt like this year was more about, hey, look, whatever you want to get, this it's in the Pro series, and then you just have to pick a size that you want.
That's a good point. Maybe they'll bring it to both. Maybe they'll bring it to one. We'll have to see. One thing that they're potentially removing from the iPhone 18 Pro and the 18 Pro Max is the capacitive functionality on the camera control button. So the camera control button is still going to remain there, but the capacitive functionality, so you know when you can swipe and stuff like that, very clunky. I don't use
Yeah,
it whatsoever.
yeah,
Apparently, that's going to go, right? It's going to save them a bunch of money. And from what they're probably seeing, from what I can tell, most people don't actually use it, right? So they're probably thinking, like, you know, like with Samsung with the S Pen, they were like, only 1% of users are using Bluetooth on the S Pen. So let's take it out, right? Some people will complain
yeah.
about it, but it's fine. They'll get over it, right? And it looks like Apple may also be doing this based on these leaks, that they'll be simplifying it by removing the capacitive functionality, but they'll only be keeping the pressure sensing, right? So you still be able to kind of, you know, use it as a shutter button and stuff like that. But then swiping through and stuff like that, you're not going to be able to do anymore, apparently.
I mean, I think that's fine. I've each time I use the button and I try swiping through, it just kind of annoys me, and I just go back to my screen and I'm like,
It's like,
you know what,
this is so much
let's just
easier.
do this. Yes.
You know, I've said this about the camera control button and, you know, how lots of manufacturers have now also implemented it on Android side. So, you know, we've got like the Vivo has it, and then we've also got the Honor Magic 8 Pro also has a camera control, which they're calling something else. The thing is, for me, I've always said that it's the worst of both worlds. They've tried to make it the best of both worlds by putting it in a position which can be used either landscape or portrait. But when you're in landscape, it's too far in, right? So it's not where your
Yeah.
finger would normally rest. And then when you're in portrait, it's too low, right? So in trying to make it the best of both worlds, they've kind of made it the worst of both worlds in terms of the positioning, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if they actually, you know, I'm surprised they're not removing it altogether, but I guess they've kind of committed so much that, you know, okay, we'll leave it there, but we're going to get rid of the capacitive functionality. It'll also make life a lot easier for case manufacturers, because if you do want a case that has that functionality, either you have to have a massive gap, which isn't cool, or you then also have to have a button that can take the capacitive triggers and, you know, transfer them on to the camera control, which is complicated as well, I'm sure.
Yeah. It will be interesting to see what case manufacturers do, because Apple doesn't really share all the details. So anyone who's either started production, not started production, but is thinking about it now, might just have to wait and see, like, hey, let's just leave a cutout.
Well, that's what they initially did, didn't it? Because when you saw the case manufacturer, the cases initially for the iPhone, when we had the camera control button,
Yeah.
all of the ones that came out just had a gap, right?
Yeah.
And then we started seeing the iterations with more of the, you know, capacitive functionality. So I think they're going to be like, you know, thank God. We don't have to bother with all of this, right? So they're going to be like, yes, because it saves them a lot of work.
Yeah,
Um,
it's true.
but we're going to be seeing, I'm sure we're going to be seeing more sort of dummies and stuff leak very soon. Now, internally, A20 Pro chip. This is rumored to be a 2 nanometer chip, like we've got on the Exynos 2600. So it's going to be faster, more efficient. But also, interestingly, Apple is going to be completely replacing Qualcomm, apparently, right? So they're going to have the new C2 chips for improved cellular connection, right? So right now we've seen kind of a mix. So certain iPhones have you know, Apple's own chips, but others still have some of Qualcomm's technology. But it looks like Apple is going to be kind of going fully in-house and being like, see you later, Qualcomm, for that side of things. And well, it's going to be cheaper for them, right? That it's not going to cost them as much.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting journey. I remember the days of like 4G LTE and Intel wireless chipsets in iPhones and how they weren't doing as well and all that fun stuff. And to Qualcomm's credit, it is not easy
Mm.
making a wireless chip. People don't understand how difficult it is. That's why it's taken Apple so long to do that. I mean, there was even the court case that happened where it was found that Apple basically took the chip design that Qualcomm, showed them, and they gave it to Intel so that Intel could actually make a
Ooh.
better chip. They lost
Oh
that
man.
case and they had to basically had to settle. Um, so it just shows how long it's taken, and now Apple has something that in-house they're happy with. They've tested it on a couple of devices, and it looks like, okay, this is the year that we're going fully in-house. We're interested to see how this affects Qualcomm's bottom line at the end of the
Mm.
day, because no matter how you look at it, losing, even if you're supplying half the iPhones as of, say, last year, now to this year, you're not, that's a lot of devices that you're just not getting paid for, right? At all. You're using that kind of revenue. So be interested to see that, but also be interested to see how this continues. Because so far, even from my own use case, the Apple chipset has been good. Nothing, I mean, I don't think anyone has really, that I know, has done a deep benchmark test for wireless connectivity. But in terms of just usability, like, it works, you're connected, you get fast speeds if you have a fast connection, that kind of stuff. So kudos to them. And, this is what Tim Cook does, supply chain management, man. Keep it in house.
Yeah. A couple of bits that you mentioned. Firstly, connectivity, and it's been great on the iPhone, but it might just get even better because a couple of final bits from Front Page Tech is one that we are potentially going to be getting 5G via satellite on the iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max, right? So they'll be potentially integrating support for 5G from satellites instead of just relying on towers, right? So we've all been there where, you're not really close to a tower, so you've not got the best reception. Maybe you're out on a walk, something. Now, if you can get 5G via satellite, damn, that's gonna be something.
I mean, this is not gonna make me go camping. So, I mean, it's cool, but you ain't catching me outside.
You know, I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say. I'm not sure it's gonna go down well.
It's okay, we
But
know.
basically, me and Enabong don't go camping, and neither do a lot of people who are like us. That's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna keep it safe. We don't match the demographic for people who go camping. All right,
Mhm.
let's just keep it that way. Now you mentioned Tim Cook, and he is the supply guy, and he is the one that would make this possible. But again, from this report from Front Page Tech, it looks like the iPhone 18 Pros might be his last. So we've been hearing rumors for quite some time now that he will be stepping down at some point. But it looks like, after achieving this, which would be quite a big achievement, right? iPhones using Apple chips for cellular, right? Which is a big, big step, and completely going through that, then that would be quite an exit for him. And from what Front Page Tech is saying, that is going to be he's going to be leaving this year apparently. So yeah, it might be his last
Do you think
iPhone.
we get the new CEO before he leaves or after he leaves?
I think it's going to be after he leaves. I'm sure he's still going to stick around in some capacity, like from an advisory point of view.
So
But from
yeah.
Yeah, but it looks like from all the rumors that we're seeing, it looks like it's going to be John Turnus who's going to be taking over. Again, none of this is confirmed, but these are all murmurings that we're hearing, and it looks like the iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max, you know, with the iPhone
Would
Fold, and I think that would be quite a good time, right? Okay,
send of yeah.
launching the first foldable from Apple, launching these, doing all of that, and then using that as kind of leaving on a high, right? And using that as a time to say goodbye and pass on the leadership to
I
somebody
think I
else.
think you're right, because as a CEO, you don't want to leave where things are murky. So he's shored up AI, right? We know that the first, according to Matt Gurman, the first push for the updated AI is coming next month, most
Mm,
likely with the 17E. So at least just some basic improvements with Gemini coming in immediately to showcase that. I won't be surprised. First thing they fix is actually the picture editing,
yep.
because that's powered by Gemini. Those are the kind of things that they will fix immediately, and then the big push would be at Dub Dub is when
Yeah.
we get the big push. And then you're right. And after September launch, you launch the first iPhone. You now say all iPhones are fully built in house. Everything of the iPhone is, even though Samsung still makes your screen and your um,
Well,
SSDs.
yeah, but with the
Yeah,
important bits like the
internals,
cellular
the
and
important
stuff,
ones.
which
Yeah,
is which
yeah.
is yeah. And then launching the first Apple foldable device, right? And then goodbye. I mean, tying up the loose ends, launching these, and then saying goodbye. So I think that kind of makes sense. It seems like it's going to be likely, but we'll only find out around September time.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see what direction the company takes, and I think on the one hand, he secured them on a good standing financially because Apple is one or two in terms of valuation, as a company worldwide. He's also shored up their manufacturing, which is always very key in places like this. He's
Hmm.
shored up their manufacturing partners over the years, so Apple has a supply chain that is tight beyond belief. And, we're in the chip era with the chip race. The number one chip manufacturer is, in Taiwan with, I just forgot the name of the company, TSMC. And Apple basically has first dibs for everything TSMC does. So, and the funny part is also there's still rumors that Apple is looking at Intel because
Ooh.
Intel's 18A chipset with Panther Lake, which is now everyone's really praising, is also something Apple's interested in. So if he shows up that other side where it's like, okay, I've got number one chip provider, I've got a good backup number two, or at least they can handle other stuff for us. All right, kids, it's time for Papa to go home. That's literally
Yeah.
what he's just going to do and be out.
Yeah, looks like it. I mean, last piece of information that we have from Front Page Tech is that the iPhone 18 Pro is actually going to be the cheapest new iPhone in September, which is a bit of a surprise because the
Wow.
iPhone 18 Pro Max, and then we've got the iPhone Fold, right, which is rumored to be around the $2,000 mark. So if you want the lowest price new iPhone in September, it's going to be $1,000 for the iPhone 18 Pro, and that's what it's looking like.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. You think about it, what do you need to do with the iPhone 18 this year, right? Nothing. So you might as well just, drop price a little bit, mention that it's available. You might maybe introduce a new color if they want to, and just say, hey, look, we now have that in, sand blue or something. And then here are the new iPhones type of
Hey,
thing.
sorry. Sand blue?
Hey, look, look, whenever they make these colors, people just name it
No, hold
whatever.
on. I'm gonna Google this. Is there such thing as sand
Yes.
blue?
I don't know. I'm
Okay.
Googling
All
myself.
right. So what I'm seeing is, you could tell, Annabong is a dad because he's been playing with the blue colored sand and all sorts, right? And then he's like, let's go with sand blue.
I mean, look, there is blue sand, okay?
Yeah,
So I am correct.
yeah, yeah.
I'm just saying
That's in the playset. That's in Noah's playset. Sorry, man. I've been roasting him too much. All
I
right.
know,
N-
right? I know. But yeah, I mean, I think I think it's gonna be an expensive time for iPhones. But to be fair, we know very well that for most people, upgrades come through their carriers, right? It's
Yeah.
it's usually that extra $20 a month. With things like a foldable, you're looking at around $30 to $40 a month extra for that kind of payment. And with the iPhone 4 going at 2,000, and we have the pricing for the trifold in the US now at 2,900. Um, this puts things in perspective. This is a very interesting time for mobile where we thought for a while that, slaps, this is the end. We're done. Now we have a different aspect to it that changes a lot of things.
It does. It does. And now, for our final topic, we were talking about goodbyes. We may potentially have to say goodbye to OnePlus, at least in certain markets, right? So this is based on a report from Android Headlines, which has been a little bit controversial because it was initially seemed like it was written by AI, and then they did clarify that it's been changed, and some of the article they had basically had AI assisted materials, right? So they had AI assistants, they said. So that's why it kind of threw off. But essentially, what they're saying is that, like manufacturers such as HTC, LG, who left the smartphone market, and also most recently Asus. By the way, did we just completely miss this?
Yeah, we didn't even talk about it. Yeah, just kind of
Dude,
quietly, just
Asus.
like we're
Oh
done.
man. I think you know what it is with Asus, right? I've covered their smartphones for a while and they make really good smartphones, right? But I think Marquez did a kind of follow up following this article, and he did a really good video, which will link. The downfall of OnePlus will be studied, right? And I think he kind of hit the nail on the head, right? That the enthusiasts are the hardest to please, they have the highest expectations, and they're the least loyal, right? So now, if we look at the Asus phones, because we've just brought that up, if you look at the ROG phone, for example, right, that was an enthusiast phone. If we
Yeah.
look at the Zen phones, right, the Zen phones, the smaller phones, again, amazing, reviewed really well. Everybody loved them. But then they realized that they're just not selling enough. So then they went kind of tried to go mainstream. And then we've seen what happened with the recent Zen phones. Nobody bought them. They looked very generic and there was really nothing that really stood out. And, it's understandable why Asus has now left the market. OnePlus, on the other hand, is a little bit different because OnePlus, from what we can see, it's still making really good phones and it's still quite popular anyway, right? And they started with, the OnePlus One, which was very much an enthusiast phone, the flagship killer everybody was talking about. It was hyped up so much because you needed an invite to buy it. There was so much hype around that device. And then obviously they started, I think the peak they reached was when it was the OnePlus 7 Pro.
Hmm.
You remember, that's one of my favorite phones as well. It just looks so good with that blue color, with the pop-out camera and things like that.
Yeah.
And then since then, they've kind of, tried to go mainstream. And I still really like OnePlus devices. They generally make my top 5 lists, whether that's, mid-year or end of year. They make some amazing, amazing smartphones. But from what we're reading here, there's speculation that because of lower sale numbers, that Oppo might be kind of taking them back under their wing and just kind of slowly dismantling OnePlus and kind of sticking to Oppo devices. So that's what it's looking like right now. And if that is the case, then dude, I'm genuinely upset because like I love OnePlus phones.
I have thoughts. I mean, just going back to the Asus conversation quickly, you're right. Marquez definitely his video really hit the nail on the head because one of the things that just launched recently that I'm trying to cover the device on a release of a device called the Win 100, I think. It's a gaming phone that's part of their main line. But if you think about the way the phone's constructed, they just basically said, okay, look, now that we're running big batteries left and right, put a 10,000 milliamp battery in shove a Snapdragon, and we'll get one of our cameras in there and just throw in and call it a day. Because of how good the processor is, you don't need to do any special overclocking like you did with the ROG phones. And this is basically when you look at the phone, it looks like it's a sum of parts that you already have. So
Hmm.
they don't need to actually go in and they can call it a gaming phone and they'll be happy with whatever sales they get from that, right? So people like the ROG phone, the Red Magic is the only one that's like alive and surviving. But then again, they do special quantities. They still stay in that lane.
Hmm.
Going over to OnePlus and hearing, just seeing the article and hearing that this might disappear.
Yeah.
I blame Oppo. I don't I so Marquez is right, but I blame Oppo. And I blame
Okay.
them for one very distinct reason. When you buy a company like this, and we knew you're buying this for the US market, your marketing has to change. You have to come out and say, this is the phone for America right here. This has nothing to be about being a niche phone anymore. We're coming in for that market. But you
Hmm.
still went with the same marketing of like, never settle. I'm not saying never settle is a bad thing, but like that whole niche market where people again get fickle, right? They're like,
Hmm.
where's the wireless charging? What about the better camera? Where's this? Like these all these complaints left to right. Instead of OnePlus moving and saying, no, we are now big boys and we're going to play hard in the big boy arena for you to do
Yep.
that. And you've noticed, if you look at Motorola on the other side, Motorola has not done that except when it comes to foldables. Because they were smart to go, look, we own the budget, but we can jump into the foldables and play in that game because there's only Samsung there. And that is almost a distinct look at a company who decided we know how to play this game. While Oppo was basically going, hey, see what you can do, instead of like trying to do something particular in that space.
I also think with Oppo kind of going a lot more global, and having OnePlus devices that essentially look like Oppo devices, right? They don't really look unique. They're like, okay, this is just a rehashed Oppo device. And we talked about this where, if you look at the Oppo Find X9 Pro and you put it up against the OnePlus, they look practically the same, right? So there isn't anything too distinctive now for OnePlus devices. I still think it's salvageable. I still think that they could, kind of come back. And, for reference, OnePlus has responded to this article, and, OnePlus North America continues to operate with full guarantee of users, after sales support, software updates, and rights commitments, right? But that statement also kind of says, don't worry, the phones you have right now will carry on working, but it doesn't really, kind of give us confidence that we're gonna get the iPhone, the OnePlus 16 or anything like that. You know what I
Like
mean?
that, yeah. No, no, true.
So
It doesn't.
yeah, I don't know, like, maybe Oppo have a plan to like fully sort of, start launching in the West. So then instead of having the different devices, they're just gonna have like, okay, Oppo, and that's it. Roll with it everywhere. Let's forget having these two different versions.
I mean, it could be that, but even their own strategy itself, let's look at Oppo properly as a brand. Where does it stack up in the Chinese brands, right? Right now,
Mm,
right? We know we just put Huawei in a corner, that it's kind of there, right? Xiaomi is one of the bigger ones right now, especially the way they do their marketing around their phones and they're in the cars. Like they released a car and everybody wants a car, even though they make a phone, right? And they would do a really good job with their main line and their ultra line whenever they release that. Oppo was supposed to be the number two, but in the last year, Vivo has come out of nowhere and said, "Look, you know what? We're going to focus on something to get people's attention, which is camera." And it's really shown. It
mm,
felt like out of nowhere, Vivo just said, woke up and decided to just light a fire and be throwing them out. So where does Oppo land in that mix, other
mm,
than they make a lot of devices. They do make really solid foldables. They make, the same thing. They have a regular, a pro version, and an ultra phone, but where does it stand? And
mm,
if they're in that mix within their own market, then that just shows why OnePlus is also in the situation it is. Parent company is also going to basically pass on some of that nature to its sub brands. And, even the conversation of them bringing in back some of the other sub brands like the Realme to basically refocus that as a proper budget brand, because Realme started expanding, making more expensive phones,
mm.
you know,
Yeah,
like
because Realme was supposed to kind of be like the budget smartphone.
price point, and then,
Yeah.
it's encroaching to that $700 range. You're like, "Yo, bro, easy."
Slow down, slow down. You mentioned a lot of the brands. So this article from Android Headlines has some charts and some numbers, and we've got the Indian smartphone market top 10 brands, right? So this is comparing it from the third quarter of 24 to the third quarter of 25, right? Number one, the Vivo. Market share has increased by 20.7%. So it's now 18.3% Vivo. So as you were saying, Vivo kind of killing it. Oppo's doing pretty good as well. The market share hasn't increased massively, but it's still number two, 4.2%. But then if we kind of go down, OnePlus has dropped by about 30.5%. So they've gone from 3.6% down to 2.4%. So that's quite a drop. You mentioned Motorola. Motorola seem to be killing it because they've gone from 5.7% to 8.3%. So that's like one of the biggest jumps, 52.4% that increase in terms of their numbers, right? So yeah, it's a very competitive market. And I think sometimes things can seem a little bit disjointed. So, based on these numbers alone, Oppo might be thinking, hey, look, let's kind of focus fully on the Oppo brand. That's the one that's doing the best, right? OnePlus, I remember when OnePlus devices were the number one flagship devices sold in India.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember that? And they were like,
Yeah.
if and it's so interesting because I always talk about this, that whenever you cover a OnePlus device, the viewership from India would always be very high because those devices were very, very sought after in India,
Mhm.
right? But from looking at these charts, it's looking like, that number is still there, don't get me wrong, but it is dropping. And, Oppo might be kind of thinking, hey, look, let's focus on just our main brand instead of all of these sub brands. Who knows?
No, true, and you mentioned something when you were just kind of bringing the list, and I started thinking about, like, Nigeria, for example.
Mm.
OnePlus wasn't necessarily big, but it was considered like a good, okay, if I don't get an iPhone or Galaxy, I'm gonna get OnePlus. Now the market there has changed completely where Infinix,
Oh
Techno
yeah,
rule
yeah,
the show. They rule the show. And that's also bottom competition, which Motorola, like I said, understands that they can come in as being like lower, but quality at a lower price. Where, and you know the Motorola name. So you're like, okay, do I get Infinix or Moto? I'll just get the Moto because I know what I'm getting in the first
yeah.
place. And OnePlus could have been in that mix of being like, oh, I understand OnePlus. Like, when was the last time we seen a OnePlus phone under 500?
Hmm. Well, we've got the Nord series.
He's
He's
the
not
one
happy
that's
with the Nord
laughing,
series.
not me.
Hey, look, I look, I saw, look, to me, like OnePlus, it's so interesting because there was a point in time when all of my brothers, we all had OnePlus phones, right? Okay,
Uh-huh.
and OnePlus phones. One of my brothers still uses a OnePlus phone. They are good phones, right? They're reliable. They have good software. ColorOS is now kind of adopted a lot of the Oxygen OS that we had and made it fast and smooth. Um, I think one of the areas where they've really not shined is around the cameras, but they do make good phones, and it would be a shame to see them exit, right? And I think it'd be more of a hit, and which is why so many more people are talking about it compared to Asus. Because look, Asus make the best laptops. They make amazing the ZenBook Duo. What a laptop, right? They are very good at a lot of things, monitors, so many things that they do amazingly. On the smartphone side of things, they did
It
really
wasn't a
well,
thing.
but it was for a niche, right? It was for a niche. So that niche, as soon as like, okay, I honestly, I only heard about this on this article. Like, this is the thing, right? Hearing about Asus leaving the market, I didn't even know because it wasn't that much of a big deal. OnePlus, on the other hand, I think there is a lot more love for OnePlus, and it's a lot more well known as a smartphone brand. So if they do exit, it's gonna be sad. I hope they don't. Let's see. These are obviously early reports. Nothing's been confirmed as yet, but who knows?
Yeah, it will feel like LG exiting, but a little bit on a softer spot where you're like, man, I wish, it did better. So hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully we get a restructuring focus where, okay, if OnePlus, they might just kind of go, okay, you know what, US, UK, that's it, nothing else. And the rest is Oppo, which I'm fine with, but just Oppo, give us some more
Let's
commitment.
see.
Please do.
I mean, on that topic, you made me a little bit emotional because you mentioned LG and also HTC. I mean, come on, man.
Oh,
HTC, my
HTC,
first
HTC one, that one hurt.
dude, HTC was my first Android smartphone, the HTC Desire, right? My first Android smartphone. Absolutely loved that thing. Used it for so many years until it barely had any legs, right? And the HTC M7 was it, right? The design, it was there. It had the speakers. Dude, HTC were awesome, and it was very, very sad to see them exit the market, right? LG, dude, you know what? I actually have to apologize to LG because when they announced the LG Wing, I was just like, come on. Like, I was actually making jokes about it. Like, who wants this
I
phone?
remember. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when I got it, I was like, you know what? This is actually really cool. I I can actually see myself using this because it flips open, you're still holding your phone in portrait, and you can see in landscape. And I was like, you know what? This is actually really good. And I was like, I'm sorry, LG. I'm sorry that I, made fun because obviously that was the reason because I made fun of the LG Wing is why LG shut down. Obviously, I'm joking, right? But like I just felt really bad because obviously the timing of it was so bad. I was just like, why was I making fun of it? This is actually a really cool piece of tech, and it's nice that LG are trying different form factors and stuff like that. And here was me thinking, oh, why would anybody want this? And I was like, oh, actually, I want this when I got to use it. Oh man, I'm sorry, LG. I'm sorry.
Oh my god, man. Nah, I mean, LG had missteps that I think, boiled down to just some manufacturing and some design choices that users just didn't connect with, well, in regard. But the Wing was a nice last-ditch effort. I felt like if it had come up earlier, would have been
Hmm.
great. Like, 2 years
Yeah.
before the Wing came out, would have hit. But at that point, everybody just kinda looked at it like, and now we all go like, 'cause the Wing is like a pre-foldable foldable in a sense, because you get multiple aspect ratios, for this device, which is cool, but man. Man,
Man,
it's getting smaller. It's getting smaller in the
I
space.
know, man. We like to see competition, and it's going to be a shame to see, others go, which I hope they don't. And again, OnePlus, please stay. We love you. We'll, I mean, we do. This is the thing. We use their devices all the time, right? We've been covering their devices quite extensively for quite some time. So, it's not our fault because we actually really like OnePlus devices, right? So,
I love it. It's like, don't blame me. I swear
yeah,
it's
don't
not
blame me
me.
because we've been covering them for ages, and we've actually been like genuinely like, and I recommended the OnePlus 13 last year as well. I'm like, you know what, like for the deals that you're getting, because when you actually compare it, like people a lot of times compare the cameras to the likes of the Galaxy S Ultra device, right? But it's like, yeah, but then this is like $500 cheaper, dude. So it's like
Yeah.
you can't. It's not really an apples for apples comparison. So like, yeah, the cameras are not as good. Yeah, I say that it's not as good, right? But you're paying $500 less. So that's not a fair comparison. You can't compare it to that. You have to kind of compare it to something that's more on that same price level, right? But anyway, we're gonna be going on for ages on
I
this.
know.
So let's just say OnePlus, we hope you don't leave. And it will be very sad if they do.
It will be
And sorry,
around.
LG, and we miss you, LG, and we miss you, HTC.
HEC makes VR headsets now, okay? Some really
Hey,
good ones.
dude, I had the SPV device, right? Which was actually made by HTC, but it used to be referred to as SPV. And this is a Windows phone before smartphones were a thing, right? This is talking
Mhm.
a long, long time ago, right? Some people that are listening may not have even been born, right? That's how. So the HTC one really hurt, man. But yeah, so OnePlus, hopefully we'll see them in some aspect anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. That's all we have time for, guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, as always, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel on SuperSaf Speaks. We also post lots of reels and shorts on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts. So also follow us on there. This has been your host, SuperSaf, with my co-host,
Thunder E from Border Work.
and we'll see you next time.
Bye.